The coronation was a modest affair. Only the King of Scotland, his wife, and a few invited guests were present. There was neither money nor time for a grand celebration. The English were practically at the gates. For Elizabeth de Burgh, the newly crowned Queen of Scotland, everything felt like a dream. But the awakening came swiftly, and it was unwelcome for all those involved in the coronation. She was born in the late 13th century into the family of a powerful Earl of Ulster. The King of England himself referred to Elizabeth's father as a close friend, so it was no surprise that the young woman was introduced to the court at an early age. The pretty, fair-haired Elizabeth found herself among the ladies-in-waiting of the young Queen Margaret of France, who had recently arrived on the island. The girls, close in age, quickly bonded and spent much time together, especially since King Edward I often left London. The English monarch had affairs to attend to in the north, in Scotland. Edward did not recognize the claim to the throne by King John Balliol. Instead, he supported the Bruce clan, whose leader, the young Robert, showed unwavering loyalty to England. Together, they managed to expel John from the kingdom, but peace in Scotland remained elusive as the rebellion led by William Wallace erupted. To the surprise of the English, the rebels were supported by none other than Robert Bruce. For several years, the North was truly heated. Ultimately, Wallace was defeated by the English king, and Bruce changed his allegiance once again. He traveled to London to pledge his loyalty to Edward for the second time. Thus, their meeting in the English capital took place, Elizabeth de Burgh and Robert Bruce. It seemed that there was mutual attraction from the very first glance, as Robert soon asked for Elizabeth's hand in marriage. The young woman's family agreed. Bruce was declared the regent of Scotland, and that position seemed quite secure. Their wedding took place in the early 14th century. The journey north was long and exhausting. Robert had to leave ahead of time. Then he set off with his entourage to one of the mountain clans, so Elizabeth did not see her husband for some time after the wedding. However, she had the opportunity to get to know his daughter from his first marriage, and Marjorie welcomed her new stepmother warmly. Robert Bruce could have continued as a loyal vassal to King Edward, but the Scots made it clear that they would not accept English rule over them. They were willing to submit to their own king, and from several sides, Robert began to receive hints about the possibility of leading Scotland. This was enticing and aligned perfectly with Robert Bruce's own aspirations. He emerged as the only strong contender for the Scottish crown, and the clans pledged their loyalty to him. Robert and Elizabeth were crowned at Scone. Enraged by Bruce's latest betrayal, the English king launched military actions. It took him only a couple of months to defeat the Scots. Elizabeth, along with her stepdaughter and ladies-in-waiting, sought refuge in the castle of the Earl of Ross, but he betrayed them as soon as the English were in sight. Princess Marjorie was sent to a monastery for safekeeping, while Elizabeth was placed in Yorkshire. She spent nearly 6 years in a fortress, completely unaware of her husband's fate or that of her family. A few years later, the innocent Scottish queen was moved to Windsor Castle, and then her place of exile was changed 5 more times. Elizabeth and Marjorie were valuable hostages, and the new English king, Edward II, was not willing to let them slip away. In a surviving letter from Elizabeth de Burgh, she mentioned that her treatment was far from courteous, and the conditions left much to be desired. Everything changed when Robert Bruce achieved a crushing victory over the English at the Battle of Bannockburn. The news was personally delivered to Elizabeth by Edward II, who informed the captive that negotiations for her release had begun. The Queen of Scotland regained her freedom that same year, having spent nearly 8 years in captivity. However, her reunion with her husband was cold. Elizabeth had hardened during her time in confinement. She confronted him with bitter accusations, lamenting the years of her life lost due to his games of kingship. Yet, peace was soon restored in the Scottish royal family. The couple had 4 children, including twins, David and John. One of the boys died just hours after birth, but David would later go on to become King of Scotland. Elizabeth did not live long after the birth of her son. She died after falling from a horse. Robert, deeply affected by her death, arranged to pay £5 annually for masses to be said for Elizabeth's soul at the parish church in Cullen. This arrangement was never revoked, and payments continued for many centuries until the relevant financial records were lost. However, at the request of the clergy, the tradition was revived. Prayers for Queen Elizabeth de Burgh are still offered to this day.